Ciao everyone and welcome back to a new episode of Learn Italian with Songs. I'm still I'm still catching on my breath because I had to run to get a delivery. In fact, thank you for waiting almost 1 hour. I don't know what happened to the delivery guy, probably he got lost or something. He was fine and I got my delivery. So it's okay. Anyway, today we are going to talk about the second track of Natura Morta, the album of Folkstone. If you are more interested in learning something about the album as a whole, go and check the previous episode, so the first track, and which is Alabastro, because there I also did an introduction concerning Natura Morta. Today we're going to talk about Appennino. But what does it mean, Appennino? Well, Appennino is a geographical noun, we could say, because the Appennini, or l'Appennino, or gli Appennini, is a mountain range consisting of parallel smaller chains extending for about 1,200 kilometers. In miles is roughly 750. Through the length of the peninsular Italy. So basically, Italy has two main systems of mountains. We have the Alps in the north, which are taller because they are the consequence of the portion of the Earth colliding, so they go up. While the Appennino is going down because, like many ancient mountain chains, they are subject to erosion. And in fact, the Appennino gli Appennini are shorter. So, peculiar name, right? Well, because the song is about the Appennino. In fact, it is a description made by the band concerning what is the Appennino for them. Because geographical places can be many things. And of course, their description, their perception, their vision changes according to who is looking. So, the true question is, in this case, what is the Appennino for Folkstone? We're going to find out because the song describes their point of view concerning what the Appennino is. So, let's dive into the lyrics. And we start with the first verse. Case rade, sparse houses, il fieno disegna le geometrie. Hay, the hay, draws the geometries. Dolce sale, sweet salt, pendio di un'estate che mormora piano. Slope of a summer that murmurs softly. Tra le briciole di canfora e di vecchio, among the crumbs of camphor and old, quello specchio nell'armadio ormai si è rotto. That mirror in the closet is now broken. Nel crepuscolo la stretta dell'assenza, in the twilight the grip of absence, mani giunte in una preghiera, hands clasped in a prayer. So, as usual, remember that these type of songs, so many metal songs in Italian, are closer to poetry and literature, while, for example, pop songs are closer to colloquialism. So pop songs are usually easier to understand. Where here we are once again closer to a poem that has to be interpreted. In fact, as usual, I am going to give you my interpretation, what I see between the lines, but the whole point of these type of lyrics is that it is valued what you understand, because it is very evocative. So, what we have described opening the song is a remote rural scene. We have sparse houses. So, the idea of big, like vast wilderness with sparse houses, often in Italy put together, like grouped into little villages. But if you have in your mind some pictures of Italy, you can see these sparse houses. And then we have the hay, a hay that draws geometries. What could this mean? Well, it could be a reference to the hay balls, le balle di fieno in Italian, which are those cylindrical shaped cumuls of hay, okay? Because usually when you have to gather the hay together and keep it together, you created these cylinders and then you leave them in the fields. And so the idea is that we are watching a scenery in our mind through this description, and we see these sparse houses and these hay bales. And then we have a reference to both what we can smell and what we can taste, which is the smell of salt. Because, of course, the Appennini or the Appennino goes through the vertical section of Italy. So often you can smell the air, the salty air of the sea, despite being in the mountains. It is very common, for example, also in Liguria, because you have the mountains and then you have the sea. Pendio di un'estate che mormora piano, slope of a summer that murmurs softly. So we have what we see, the vision, we have what we smell and what we taste, but we also have what we hear. Generally in this wilderness we have not much noise, so probably an opposition to what you could hear in a city, mainly a big city. And so you have the droughts, the wind, very soft, like a breeze, we could say, which is like a whisper, okay, that murmurs softly in your ears. And the idea is that we are seeing, we are tasting, we are smelling, we are hearing all of these, and we are on a slope, because of course we are talking about mountains in a summer, okay? In my opinion, summer mainly in these places is related to childhood memories when, at least in my case, because for example, when I was a child, I used to spend good portion of my summers with my grandparents because my parents had to work. And I was doing that in the mountains because it is common in Italy having part of the family living in the city, usually your parents, but then you have your grandparents living near the sea, in the mountains. So it could be a reference because Folkstone are from Bergamo, if I remember correctly, which is in Lombardia. To put it in perspective, Lombardia is the region where we have also Milan, so we are talking about north. But because the Appennini are a little bit lower. But it could be that they or one of them, because I think they are a couple, like as in two people, probably both or one of them was spending in this setting their summer. Or maybe it is a reference to what some of their friends used to do, because it would make sense. It's not that far away. Mainly if you think that there are some children who go even to Sicily because maybe to work. the parents went to big cities in the north, but the grandparents are, I don't know, for example, as I was saying, in Sicily. And so during the summer, you go and stay a bit with your grandparents. It makes sense. So this could be an eventuality. And that's why I would focus on this detail of the summer. And then we have the second part, where it is mentioned the crumbs of camphor and old. So what is the camphora? The camphor. The camphor is a substance that is often used to preserve old things, especially in wardrobes. So it is one of those substances that is used to protect from insects, because you know that there are certain insects eating tissues, fabrics, and to protect your clothes or whatever you have in your wardrobe, you put these substances to keep them away. Again, this made me think once again to spending your summer with your grandparents, because it is something that I also often found in the house of my grandparents, which is a very specific and intense smell, because you were opening these big old wardrobes and you felt that this very powerful smell of, in my case, it wasn't camphor, it was, I don't know how it's called, in Italian it's called naftalina, but they are all substances doing the same thing, basically. And of old. And once again, it makes me think about the summer spent with my grandparents, because it was often used by previous generations, this substance. And thus, it is often related to old things. Where do you find old things? Most likely at your grandparents' house. But I don't know, Blaue, in Italy is something positive. Because if you live far away from the rest of your family, it is basically the only moment where you can spend time with your grandparents. And it wasn't my case, for example, because my grandparents live in a very small village in the Alps. But for example, I had many people going in the south, like Calabria, Sicilia, and whatnot, and they had also other kids doing the same. So basically, they had the friends they were able to meet only during school, and then the friends they were able to meet only during the summer. Yeah, I understand, Blaue, that for you might be a little bit more difficult. Why for us in Italy is quite common, because in my case it was quite easy, because 40 minutes of car and I had and I arrived. My friends having the parents in Calabria or Sicilia were having it a little bit rougher, because mainly in summer, traveling to Calabria or Sicilia, it is quite of a journey. But yes, you definitely win complexity-wise. Anyway, and then we have quello specchio nell'armadio ormai si è rotto, that mirror in the closet is now broken. Very evocative, mysterious, once again open to several interpretations, but usually the broken mirror usually refers to fractured identity and memory. So it could be meaning this. And then we have a twilight. In the twilight, the grip of absence. Usually absence, assenza in Italian, is related to the concept of grief and longing, but it could also be referring to the fact that at night, if you are not in big cities, it is more quiet. So it could also mean the absence of noise you are used to if you live in bigger cities, because, for example, Bergamo is quite big. And then mani giunte in una preghiera, hands clasped in a prayer. And we have a spiritual or ritual tone, because in generally when mani giunte in preghiera means this, because and in Italy usually this image evokes either going to a church, which again sometimes is the center of little villages, smaller villages in Italy, but it is also something that can hint at a funeral or like a mass in honor of the fallen. And it will be more clear this context in the rest of the song. It's okay, Blaue, as long as it is on concerning the topic and what I'm saying, yes. Because it's still a live stream, like Gaso does it. The thing, like, no problem if we talk about what Sora being disturbed in my explanation. Because I interrupted myself, but it's okay. I'll keep going. Don't worry, Tora. And as I was saying, we'll understand better this player, but not yet, because now we have a short chorus. Vieni con me, come with me, tra filari di luna piena, between rows of full moon. Vivi con me, live with me, la terra incontra le nuvole. The earth meets the clouds. And this description, I liked it very much. It is very whimsical. So we have the description and then an invitation, probably to the audience. So come with me, but where? Between the rows of full moon, where, however, filari is a very peculiar term that in Italy is usually used to describe vineyards and orchards, because usually you have filari di vite, la vite, which is not la vita, la vite, complex, I can get it. So la vite is the tree of the grape, okay? And usually it is organized in this row. I think you have in mind a vineyard. In rows. So usually that is what in Italian is called un filare. So it is usually related to vitigni. And in certain zones of the Appennino, you have in fact several vitigni, the vineyards. And then but however, these filari are not of grapes, are of full moon. Okay, now the moon has usually quite of a symbolic importance, because it can symbolize several things. It can symbolize reflection, cycles, because physically the moon reflects the sunlight. Cycles, because of course moon cycles have impacts on several elements, but also the unconscious as opposed to the sun. For example, this emerges in the system of the tarots, because in the Italian tarots you have the sun and the moon. And while the sun is your conscious self, your rationality, the moon is your unconscious. It is also the femininity, while usually the sun represents the masculinity. It is also what can illuminate a pathway in darkness, mainly because we are talking about the full moon, so even more light. And it also creates a dimension of sacred place and also mystical place, because, of course, it is also an element of the night. And it could mean that we reach the night after the twilight mentioned in the first verse. And then we have not only come with me, but also live with me, so an element of union that is also repeated in the last line, where, implied, the earth meets the clouds, which are a bit of opposite, because usually the clouds, so the sky, is considered the opposite of the earth. And so we are describing this magical place where there is the perfect equilibrium, because we have the opposite meeting and living in balance. And then we have the second verse, and the second verse, as I was explaining, it might explain the end of the first verse. Sento ancora, I still feel, una brezza che sfiora labbra indiscrete, a breeze that touches indiscreet lips, e riaffiora, and resurfaces, una pagina antica delle 100 croci, an ancient page of the 100 crosses. Non fermarti se anche il sonno ti rapisce. Do not stop, even if sleep steals you away, perché a casa non vi farai mai ritorno, because you will never return home. Tu viandante in un pozzo senza fondo, you wanderer in a bottomless pit, lì sul valico ti scioglierai nel vento. There, on the pass, you will melt in the wind. So, we have, in the first portion of the second verse, another description. So, we are in this setting, and our narrator tells us that they can still feel this breeze. Often the wind in many symbologies talks and passes on indiscreet lips, which might hint at unspoken truths or secrets. What these secrets might be. An ancient page of 100 crosses, of the 100 crosses. Now, here we could have a double meaning, because it could be, in the first place, a reference to Passo di Cento Croci, which is like an actual place on the Appennino, which roughly translates as the 100 crosses pass or pathway. And it is a mountain pass located at an altitude of 1,055 meters above the sea level that separates the Val di Vara from Emilia. Emilia-Romagna is one of the regions in the center of Italy. And there is this portion of the Appennino separating, and in this portion of the Appennino there is this pathway, this pass. So, this is related, this name at least, is related to a folklore story, okay, to a piece of folklore. Among the ancient stories, there is one in particular that apparently gives the name to the place. Because it is said that a band of brigands who operate along the Appennino ridge killed during their ferocious raids more than 100 travelers. And this would explain the second part of the verse. Hence, the corresponding 100 crosses placed as a warning and which reminded in the name of the pass. So basically, it is said that the name of the pass is dedicated to all the travelers who got killed by these brigands. But there is another thing. So there is also a monument dedicated to the partisans, because the partisans fought there as well, who fell during the Second World War, belonging to the Cento Croci Brigade, because in Italy there were several brigades of partisans. They were many of them were quite small, but each one of them had a name, and some of them had place names, like in this case. And in fact, on April 25th of each year, because it's Giornata della Liberazione, so when Italy celebrates the liberation from the Nazi fascist regime, and on April 25th of each year, at Cento Croci, at 11 a.m., a mass is celebrated in memory of all the fallen partisans. This would explain the ending of the first verse, where we have these hands clasped in a prayer, probably because of the dedicated to the partisans. But it also explains the second part of the verse, because we have our narrator saying, "Don't stop, even if sleep steals you away." Why you can't, you don't have the luxury to stop? Because if you stop to rest, in this case, you will never come back home. You will never return home. Because in one case, we have the travelers who got attacked by the gangs. And in fact, we have the wanderers, the travelers, ending in the bottomless pit. But we also had the partisan who often fought during night to take advantage of the place, because of course it is harder to fight during night, and if you fight during night in a place you know, while your enemy doesn't know it, you have an advantage, and so you can fight despite the difference in the number, which was often the case concerning the brigades of the partisans. Then we have once again the chorus. Vieni con me tra filari di luna piena, vivi con me, la terra incontra le nuvole. Come with me between rows of full moon, live with me, the earth meets the clouds. And then we have a bridge. Ebbro di te, del tuo spazio selvaggio. Drunk on you of your wild space. Strappi frattaglie dal mio smarrimento. You tear awful from my bewilderment. Copri di vezzi la parte di me. You cover with affectation or charms the part of me che non mi è sembrata mai abbastanza, that never seemed enough to me. Very beautiful image, but I need to drink because I am losing all my saliva. So we start, like we have here this quite a poignant, like very strong and evocative image, because our narrator tells us that this place is so beautiful, almost magical and mystical, that it's like it is intoxicating you. It's like you feel high in it for how beautiful, like. And here we have a way to express how overwhelming the beauty of this place can be. And in fact, we have quite of a raw image, because you tear offal. What are the offal? Usually frattaglie in Italian. Refers to the entrails and internal organs of an animal, that are used to cook, because mainly in rural places where you weren't able to waste materials, of course, when you have to eat an animal, you eat all of it, or at least you try to use all of it. This includes also the organs, and in fact, many Italian regions include recipes where you cook the entrails, the inner organs, which are considered the less important part of an animal. In fact, like in many places, you don't even find them as ingredients, because you are there to buy more refined portion of the animal. But of course, we are talking about a rural dimension. And in fact, as I was saying, there are several recipes throughout the whole Italy, even traditional, because it was very common to eat even these parts. But in these cases, like, you take away the guts, the inner organs, which usually are the ones sustaining your body, from my bewilderment. So something that is very raw, very overwhelming, but also something positive, because it's like saying you take away the core from me feeling lost. So in a certain way, you welcome me and you make me feel like I belong to something, I am in the right place. And in fact, I gave this interpretation because of the other two lines. You cover with charm and affectation. Usually, un vezzo is like a whim, like something related to someone that is spoiled. So basically, you spoil me. And you cover with nice things. You spoil me. You spoil that part of me that never seemed enough to me. So you make me feel enough and not lost anymore. Because there is a lot of this theme of feeling lost in the album generally. And then we have a variation of the chorus. Fili di luce dalla luna piena. Threads of light from the full moon. Pura bellezza, il mistero. Pure beauty, the mystery. Rimani con me in un sussurro. Stay with me in a whisper. Dove la terra incontra le nuvole. Where the earth meets the clouds. Which is, once again, an incredibly evocative image, because we have, once again, this full moon coming back, but in this case, it is projecting threads of light. As we said, the moon is often associated with the concept of intuition, the unconscious, the feminine energy, and in this case, it is casting soft glows over the scene described by the narrator, and it might suggest a moment of clarity in the inner chaos. I'm saying this in the light of what we learn until now. And this is possible thanks to this pure wild beauty, the mystery, related always to the concept of the moon. And once again, we have this whisper, like we have this image of everything happening almost between lovers, exchanging a whisper, right? And once again, we're in this magical place where the opposite find perfect balance, so where the earth meets the clouds. And then we end with a outro. e parlami ancora del moto perpetuo and tell me again about perpetual motion, di ritmi e stagioni che cantano soli, of rhythms and seasons that sing alone, which is repeated 2 times. So, what is the perpetual motion, or in Italian moto perpetuo? Today I can speak. It is an impossible concept in physics, aka a movement without end or loss, because what is the whole problem of the perpetual motion is that it is not perpetual, because to have motion you have to insert energy. If you do not insert energy, you can't have movement. So it is the theory according to which there is no loss of energy, but that's impossible because you always have to add energy in order to create the motion. But perpetual motion of what? So something like eternal in this case. Here we are not talking about the physical theory. We are talking about a cycle that never ends. And what is this perpetual cycle, this never-ending cycle? It is the cycle of the seasons and the rhythms. Rhythms of what? Of the wild nature, which will keep enduring no matter what happens. And that was the analysis of Appennino, second track of Natura Morta by Folkstone. So, generally, here we have the idea of the wild, the wild nature, which is not the dangerous and scary one. Maybe it could be because it also represents a bit the unknown, but most likely it is a nature that makes us feel welcome, makes us like we belong to a place and we are in the right place. So it is just the place where we feel like we fit. And I kind of understand this feeling, because I don't know if ever happened to you, but I had moments in my life where I felt kind of lost. But by just sitting in the mountains or like at the sea, for example, those places where there aren't many people, there isn't much humanity going on around there, and everything is just fine. And you can take a breather and you just fit. And you're like, okay, I don't feel lost anymore. So for me, it is actually relatable, this feeling, and I understand it. And it makes sense in the economy of the album, because we said that the album has this theme of criticism of technology, not because technology it is inherently bad, like it happens in certain essays, certain songs, certain pieces of art where like we just hate on technology, which is not the best take if you ask me, because technology has also positive implications. Many technological tools are like tools by definition are neutral. It depends how you use it. If you have a hammer, you can use it to plant a nail, to hang a picture, a painting, or you can use it to beat someone with it. It always depends on how you use your tools. And the idea here, luckily, is not technology bad per se. Technology good, but only if used properly. And since nowadays we struggle with this part of using technology in proficient ways, then we have as a consequence that we are often in societies extremely technological, where we are kind of losing ourselves and our humanity. I don't think here it is the easy criticism like, oh my god, everything sucks. No, they pretty much said it. The problem is not the abuse of technology, as in technology is always abused, technology bad, we have to eliminate it. It is more like we have a problem. We are using technology in a way that is not positive for us. We are misusing technology. And sometimes reconnecting with nature, we have the word, the Italian word nature, natura, even in the title of the album, but it is a still, I don't remember how is it called, still life, in Italian literally, Natura Morta, dead nature. But these nature sometimes can heal us, so the whole point would be to find a middle way between technology that is positive, if not misused, but also going back to nature because it is pretty much like a mother welcoming us home and making us feel like we belong, like we are okay. So we had the first track, Alabastro, posing the problem, like introducing the problem discussed in the album, and in Appennino we have part of the solution. Also the fact that the first track, Alabastro, ends with a travel. Because basically they say, I'm going somewhere else, il mio cuore randaggia in un altro universo, si specchia nelle stelle e naviga, my wanderer heart in another universe is mirroring the stars and sails. So we have the start of a journey. And where is the first place we are going? In the Appennino. And so we have the description of what this Appennino is. Once again, these type of songs are very dependent on how you interpret them. So if you like to share your interpretation of the song in the comments, I would be very happy to read your point of view. That said, I hope you enjoy this analysis. Grazie everyone for watching and arrivederci.